Hello everyone and welcome to AML UAE's YouTube channel. We are back with another episode of our knowledge podcast series, Know Your Compliance with AML Experts. Joining us, we have Ms. Dipali Vora. She's a certified AML specialist and a company secretary holding over 8 years of experience in AML compliance. We welcome you, Dipali. Thank you, Yashvi. Dipali, as compliance professionals, whenever we perform customer due diligence or risk assessment, and we have some doubts or queries as to how do we proceed with this case. And I have personally gone on to my seniors asking, how do I deal with this? And the usual that answer that comes up to me is what's written in the policy. You follow that. So it goes without saying that AML policies and procedures are an inseparable part of AML compliance. And that is what we're going to discuss today. So I want to know from you that the law definitely guides you as to what is required in your AML policies and procedures. But apart from that, what are the proactive steps that you take when you are designing AML policies and procedures to ensure that you truly mitigate the risk of financial crimes? Basically, when we draft policies and procedures, we have to make sure that we first understand the business of our company, okay, and what are the associated risk with that particular business, and apply risk based approach in order to draft a policy for that. Like, we have to make sure that we have conducted in-depth business specific risk assessment in which we consider companies products, services, customer base, geographic exposure. So we make sure that the controls are dynamic in nature and not static, which are capable enough to evolve along with new threats which are coming up. It's not just an annual checklist that you just tick a box. So that's not something that we do. We make sure that we have understood the company, understood the risk associated with that particular company. Many times, what happens is a company is new into a specific business. So, in such cases, we should understand that what are the business expectations and what are the possible risks that a company would face when conducting a specific type of an activity. So, yes, this is something that must be considered before designing the AML CFT policies and procedures. Right. You mentioned that, it's not just an annual checklist, and I completely agree with that. And I know for a fact that in your years of experience, you've drafted too many AML policies. So I want to know from you that over the years of experience, what are some of the absolute non-negotiable elements that you put in your AML policies and procedures to ensure that it is effective? So basically, we have to make sure that the policy is in line with what the law is asking us to follow. But to just give you a few topics which are non-negotiable, is making sure that the policy consists of a comprehensive CDD framework, that is customer due diligence framework, which would include enhanced due diligence in what cases that would be done, also clearly escalating and reporting procedures in case of suspicious activity, clearly defining the three lines of defense. Okay. Also, we must make sure that ongoing training programs are also being conducted, how frequently that would be conducted, how the assessment would be done, so that is also clearly documented. Transaction monitoring process, conducting regular independent audits and making sure that the policy is reviewed on a regular basis. And last but not the least, we must include our compliance measures with respect to targeted financial sanctions, which many companies miss out. Thank you so much, Dipali. That was very informative. And I'm glad you mentioned customer due diligence as well. Because for a business, customers are extremely important for running the business. But at the same time, you don't want to onboard the wrong kind of customer. So there's a tricky road of balancing, the need for business and profits and the need for combating financial crimes. So how do you when you are designing your AML policies, how do you ensure that your AML policy can accommodate both these requirements? So I believe the key factor here is risk-based approach and customization, not considering that one size will fit all. That is one of the key things that we should keep in mind. When drafting AML safety policies and procedures, we can make sure that wherever a specific service or a customer poses to be of a higher risk, maybe we would have that kind of controls in place. But if there is a service, say for example, which is a non-covered activity, in such cases we can have a little lenient measures. So we have to make sure that we are when we have these kind of things documented in our policy, I'm sure we are actually striking a balance between scaling up, enhancing customer experience, and compliance. So when we have a document which is a blend of all of these three things, we are making sure that we are not over complying and we are not under complying. That makes a lot of sense. Now, when I draft policies, I truly try to make it as comprehensive as possible. But sometimes it happens that you miss a thing or two, which may affect a business. So, what are the common blind spots that you've seen that people miss out on when they're drafting their AML policies and procedures? So I believe that what a company thinks is just having the policies done, but the regular updates are missed out. Post onboarding reviews. Post onboarding reviews means what they do is when a customer is onboarded, proper due diligence is being done, but they neglect the fact that you are required to monitor them on an ongoing basis. So that provisions are not mentioned, or if mentioned, not being implemented. Customer risk assessment documents are not adequate. Many times, many companies I have seen that they do have a manual, they have KYC forms, I mean, basic documents, but enterprise-wide risk assessment is only not done. Or even if it is done, it's not updated. It's not reflecting, the current business structure of the company. Also, many staff, the staff which are working in the company are not even aware that what their obligations. Okay, so training is not provided to them. Also, many companies miss out on mentioning their compliances with the sanction list. Like, how are they following? Like, whether they are applying risk-based approach and they are following something more than required. How are they, assessing the risk depending upon the clientele they have. So I think these are the things which are missed out by, majority of the companies. Right. So you mentioned that it's also important to keep your email policies up to date. But many businesses they do struggle in keeping their policies up to date. So what are some practical strategies that you would suggest for ensuring that their policy is continually evaluated, and what kind of policy review should be adopted? So maybe companies can try with setting a fixed schedule for review. Like ideally, the law suggests that you should update your policies and procedures annually, or upon any of the regulatory updates. So first is we may set a schedule. Also, what we can do is we can have a team who can monitor the developments in the AML safety law. So ultimately, that will lead to the policy update. Also, we must subscribe to the regulatory alerts and advisories. So, even that could be very helpful for us. Also, what one can do is they can have a version control system. Like, for example, right now I am using version 1 of the policy and I'm updating it into version 2. So I can clearly mention in that policy itself that version 1 and version 2, what is the difference between that and what particular part was updated. And of course, we should keep version 1 also in our records. So yeah, this would be the suggestion that in order to make sure that we don't skip updating our policies. That was very helpful. Thank you for that. But as compliance professionals, we sometimes wonder if our AML policies and procedures are going in the right direction. So, how can a business, measure the success of their AML policies and procedures? What should be the criteria? Criteria as such is that maybe if in the process, if we come across a situation where there's an inspection and the feedback that we get doesn't have much of the observations. So that could be one of the way where we can measure the success of our AML policy procedures. Also making sure that the employees are well aware when we do the assessment of the training that is being provided to them, and they come up with flying colors, then of course that's a success, a sign of success. Also, CDD measures, if that can be done very quickly now. Maybe when the law is new, or even when you're adopting a new policy, maybe things are, things might move a little slow. But later on, when it's on an autopilot mode, I would say that yes, we know that what we are required to do. I think that is also one of the way where you can measure the success of how well AML CFD policies and procedures have been implemented. Apart from that, if we are filing some quality STRs, when we file quality STRs, it's a sign that proper investigation is being done, and we know what red flags are, and that is why we are reporting them. So that could also be one of the measure to understand that how well we are implementing a policy and how well even they are drafted. Again, that was very practical, very insightful. Um, in AML compliance, I believe attention to detail is everything. So, if your one little change in your AML compliance can, give you big results. So, if I had to ask you for one simple, straightforward tip that you use when you are, developing your AML policies and procedures that most people overlook, what would that be? And can you tell us something about that? So I will say the same thing. See, the secret is out. It's written in the law itself that having risk based approach, understanding the risk of a particular business. Not every company is same. Even though they belong to the same sector, they would not have the same customer base, or they would not have the same services. So it's very important that we understand what our company is, what kind of customer base we have, what kind of services we provide. And when I say what kind of services we provide, there has to be a clear bifurcation between what are covered activities and what are non-covered activities as per Article 2 and Article 3 of Cabinet Decision number 10 of 2019. So I think if that law, that is very clear. Then you'll be drafting bang on AML CFD policies and procedures. Thank you. That was extremely insightful. I think our viewers will also agree. For all our viewers, if you have any questions or queries that you want to ask to our AML experts, you can go on to www.amlfaqs.com and you can post your questions there. We'll try to take them up and get them answered by our AML experts. Until then, you can like this video, you can share it with your friends or colleagues who might be interested in AML compliance. Subscribe to our channel. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. We hope this was helpful to you.